Have you ever been trying to make a decision or deal with a problem and think, I really wish God would just send me an email about this, because that would make this whole thing a whole lot easier? Wouldn't that be awesome? That'd be pretty amazing. Because I just wish it were easier, but it's not. And so I was thinking this week that almost every Sunday, Ryan or I begin the silent prayer time, and he did it this morning, with the same phrase, something like, let us take a few moments of silence and listen for God to speak to us. Anybody really do that? And what does it really even mean anyway? Right? Have you ever thought, what does she mean when she says that? And then I thought, well, and is the 30 to 45 seconds before Christoph starts to play the organ really enough anyway? I mean, you've just barely taken a breath and stopped your to-do list and, right? I mean, do you really get much done in that little 30 to 45 seconds of quiet, or does it just make you nervous? And then really, who has time to listen anyway? Because, you got stuff to say to God. Because this is the time during the week that you got your, 30 to 45 seconds that this is my talking to God time. Right? Stuff we're wondering about. People we need to pray for. Stuff I got to pray for me for. And then after you say all your stuff to God, do you ever get impatient for God to answer? You're not an impatient bunch, are you? Because I am. I get kind of impatient because, God, I got stuff to do. I got kids to raise and work to do and laundry to finish, and God, I just don't have all day. Anybody else wonder about that stuff? I don't think I'm alone in this. In part because it seems to me that maybe this is what the psalmist is talking about in this passage that Kathy read for us this morning. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. I wonder if the psalmist is just trying to reassure himself or reassure his reader, because like us, he isn't very good at waiting in silence. And he says it not once but twice. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. How often do you wait in silence? How often do you wait in silence? And is it intentional, or is it because your iPhone died? A few weeks ago, I heard a story on NPR's All Things Considered. And maybe some of you heard it too, or you've heard it in the week since. Their podcast, New Tech City, has been doing a project called Bored and Brilliant: The Lost Art of Spacing Out. Has anybody heard this? Did anybody see this? Now, I have to admit, I was shocked. I was really shocked when they cited this recent study that found mobile consumers spend an average of 2 hours and 57 minutes on these things. 2 hours, that's 3 hours of your day, people. What are you doing on these things? 3 hours. Oh, my Lord. So I thought, what do I do on this thing? So I opened it up, I looked at it, I said, well, what apps do I have on here, and what do I use it the most for? Well, I got the New York Times app on there. That's a noble thing, right? I read the New York Times on my iPhone, and I read the LA Times, and I read the Kansas City Star now. I have a meditation app. Actually, I have a couple of meditation apps that I use almost every day, which of course is then offset by the Facebook app that I check multiple times a day. I also consult my calendar, respond to my text message, I call my parents, and as the other associate minister note, I make Ryan a grocery list on it. But still, I thought, 3 hours? Really? 3 hours? And that's just the average. Some of you are spending more time than that on the darn things. Okay, so I'm going to take a breath here because we are not a guilt and shame kind of church, so I'm going to quit. But really? 3 hours? Now, there's some other really good stuff in this project that they're doing that got me thinking, and it's like boredom is important for our brains, say the brain science people. Stuff like daydreaming is important work and crucial for our creativity. And so it's got me thinking that maybe these bored, daydreaming, creative moments are when we are most likely to see and notice God. Now, maybe not exactly like the psalmist, my soul waits in silence, but God is doing stuff around us all the time, whether we're noticing it or not. And so, how much really cool God stuff are we missing? 3 hours. So one of the challenges that NPR gave to the people participating in this whole project was to sit in a public place, keep your phone in your pocket or in your purse, and just notice. Then they invited people to share what they noticed, via Facebook, of course. One lady sat in her regular shopping mall. She's been in it 1,000 times, right? But she realized she had never noticed the piano player in the center of the mall. Never. It's not like he's not making any noise there. And she said, it's not my phone, it's my life. I'm way too rushed. How often do you feel that way? Way too rushed. Maybe you don't, I don't know. I need to know you a little better, maybe. Because this is a busy city. This is a rush sort of place, our Los Angeles, isn't it? Now, sometimes I read the paper in the car on the way to work. Ryan's driving. I heard that in your head. She's doing what? Ryan's driving. And one morning, not long after we had moved to Los Angeles, we had a very interesting conversation in the car with our Jacob. Now, Jake must have been about 7, and to get from our little house in Larchmont to here, we come straight down 3rd Street. Same way, every day. We are creatures of habit. And as we were sitting at a red light one morning, Jacob said, "Daddy, is that man homeless at the bus stop right there?" And Ryan and I looked at the bus stop and saw the man, and we looked at one another, and Jacob continued by saying, because he's been brushing his teeth at that bus stop every morning this week. Is he homeless? Jacob noticed, and he made us notice. He was paying attention. And that led to a powerful conversation with our child about other people, about God, and about the world around us. And it wouldn't have happened if we'd all been doing this. Right? we would have missed a God moment. Anybody familiar with the little project by Brandon Stanton called Humans of New York? Anybody know this? You may follow Humans of New York on Facebook. I see some of you nodding. Some of you are going, I have no idea. Humans of New York. So this guy takes pictures of the people in New York City. Rich people, homeless people, doesn't matter. He just watches and notices and wonders. And he takes pictures of all God's children. Let me tell you, all God's children. And I think he can be a modern day example. He is, for me at least, of for God alone my soul waits in silence. Because I think what he is doing is noticing God in each and every person. He wants to know more about them and their stories. And he wants all of us to notice and see God in them too. Now, I'm not sure that's how he would describe what he's doing, but that's what I see in his art. He points me towards God in other people. And of course, most people are experiencing his art via social media, either his blog or his Facebook page. I get the irony there. But we have an opportunity right here in our own building to do the very same thing. To be inspired and to be challenged by looking at these sacred faces that Andy Romanoff has collected for us in his art exhibit. And then that challenges us to find sacred faces in this city. Humans of Los Angeles, so to speak. Because they're everywhere, all the everyday sacred faces that if we will just stop and notice, they will point us towards the holy. Lent starts this week, as Ryan said. And during this time leading up to Easter, one of the traditions people practice is giving something up. Soda, chocolate, coffee. Now, some of you are thinking, she's going to ask us to give up our iPhones. Please, God, don't let her ask us to give up our iPhones. I'm not. Never fear. Years ago, I was challenged by my minister that instead of giving something up for Lent, to take something on for Lent, to add something to my everyday routine to help me to grow closer to God during these days of Lent. And so this morning, I'm going to challenge you to use the psalmist's words as our Lenten mantra towards God moments. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. For God alone, my soul waits in silence. During this Lenten season, I want us to think about how we can be a congregation noticing God more and more in our everyday lives. How can we be a congregation that notices where God is working and how God is asking us to come alongside and work with God? During this Lenten season, I want us to be a congregation committed to God moments in our everyday lives. Now for me, I'm still going to wait for God during my sitting time each morning. Just being and waiting for God to show up. Because meditation is an important part of my life and it helps me to be a better wife and mother and minister. But I know I miss a lot of God's presence and God's speaking and God's answering of my questions and wonderings and problem solving if I limit my waiting for God moments to 5 o'clock in the morning. And so I want to be more intentional about waiting for God in other moments, to have brilliantly bored moments, creative moments of sitting and watching and listening to everything that God is doing around us. And it's easier than we think. We can wait for God to speak in the backyard. Maybe it's on our backs in the grass, looking up. When was the last time you did that? Waiting while a gentle wind blows the smell of the orange blossoms through your yard. That's a God moment. We can wait for God by taking a walk through our neighborhood. We can wait for God by sitting someplace we've been 100 times before and say, what have I never noticed? And we can wait for God even in taking 30 to 45 seconds when you are stopped at a red light to say, hey, God, I'm just sitting here. And notice, what does God need you to notice? What God moments are you not going to miss anymore? Because those moments, my friends, those are our emails from God. And God is sending them all the time. We just have to wait and notice. Amen.